we're going live. Can you hear us on there?
We got 0 viewers, so.
Okay. Alright. Let's let that go for a second. Alright, can you hear music? Is my volume good or no? Want to do a testing? Just a testing.
Sure. Can you hear us, Cody? Testing, testing, testing.
Might could be louder. Alright, so let's see. Maybe take that one. There we go. You're also pretty far from the thing.
Testing, testing, testing. How's it sound?
Alright, that sounds good.
Is he in there?
It's in there.
I only see 0 viewers. Is that true?
I
I got it up here, 0 viewers.
Alright. You
Is it-
see that? You got the chat.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Do you wait for people to go or just start?
I just wait for everybody.
Got some people?
Alright, I think we're live here.
We're live? Oh, 12 viewers.
All right.
All right. Let me pause this.
Escape.
All right.
The camera's fixed.
Hey, and Cody's back. And the camera's fixed, yeah. It's not as sunny today.
That's all.
It's snowy here, up north. Well, welcome to Drawing Blood, episode 2. And it only took us 2 weeks for that pun. Partially sponsored by White Claw. Well, not yet, but if any of you work for them, let them know that we drink this stuff while we're drawing. Hey, Scobary. I'm so bad at these kind of names. Hey, Kirby Fired. So, I'm going to just start where we left off last week. We ended up finishing the Father animation. For those of you just joining us new, Blood is a top-down adventure game, very much in the spirit of Zelda or A Link to the Past, inspired by 90s cartoons that Bob and I kind of grew up with. So last week we started the protagonist's father, A Little Idol animation, and I'm going to show you where we were and what I did over the week. So here we go in here. Okay. So I kept my roughs in here on a guide layer right now. So I'm going to turn that off right now to show you what the final animation looks like. Got him drinking some coffee. Then he's a little concerned over there. Then it repeats. And you see we kind of do everything on a 6-second loop. And you can see the beats up here. I went into it a little bit of detail last week, but we try to do everything on certain beats. Frame 1, 13, 25, which would indicate a second, and all the way to the 6-second mark where it would repeat. This keeps sprites always lively, and we have to make sure it loops so everything looks natural and doesn't cut off. What engine are you using for the gameplay? Unity, that's correct. And the future man up there, 2 or 3 lines up, he's one of the programmers for that. And we use Texture Packer to get the flash animations to turn into sprites, and then he codes it in there, and then we're off to the races. We can I don't know if we can show some gameplay on this computer. We might be able to show some. Well, yeah, don't make me do anything technologically hard, please. So, let's see. So where we left off last week, I had these rough drawings here, super rough, and boy, maybe I had too many White Claws for some of these. And then we went into the cleanup process, and what I tried to do with the father in this one is do a lot of sort of what we dub debris layers. Now, debris can be anything from rocks that are breaking to smoke, anything of that nature. But we did it with smoke in this one, or the steam from the coffee right here. And you can see we have to have it disappear. So you can see the trail. I forget you can't see my logo. So we're going to do a trail. I'm just going to guide a layer of what I was thinking to do with the smoke. And what it does is sort of just, we call it trail because it indicates the path in which the coffee traveled. While keeping your eye on the coffee, you can see this little smoke layer. And it'll go something like this, and then it'll loop up all the way there. These arrows here kind of indicate the path of action where we want the smoke. And it's just something nice that you don't see in a lot of even traditional stuff anymore, because it directs your eye, it smooths a lot out, and it just gives a little more life to it, because not everything's so straightforward. So you'll see the smoke coming down here, kind of going around the bend, and I did a giant antic here. Coming up, and I added some coffee even here, just to really sell it. Now the smoke's disappeared. So now we got another sprite of the dad drinking his coffee. And that's just, for all you Flash buffs, just a symbol that cycles here. And I cleaned this up. I don't think I cleaned it up last week, so I did that on the fly too. But what I did was make sure the silhouette's nice. You know exactly what's going on, even if you did something like this. This is how I test my silhouettes, by the way. Go to color, brightness, all the way up. Now, you can kind of tell what's going on here, but you can see it resembles someone drinking something, which is always a good start when you want to do silhouette kind of stuff like that. So I'll turn that off. Now, since this is such a cartoony video game, we can do a lot of exaggeration here. So his Adam's apple bulges out right here. Excuse me. And then it follows the path of action going down here all the way to his feet. Then it reverses. So we have him drinking. Now here's another example of what I wanted to do with this. Now keep in mind, this is all going to be viewed at 25% on the video game. This is sort of the line weight we're trying to achieve, which is a little bit thinner. So we had to do these really kind of big moves to make sure you see the characters on the screen. Otherwise it just kind of gets lost and muddled. So again, I did my roughs. This is an antic down. So we wanted to go from the drinking to him looking around, kind of questioning things. So I did a big antic down. Now what I wanted to do was have the coffee drag, so not everything's on the same exact animation level. Because you could have easily went from this to this and just keep the coffee in hand, but I wanted the coffee to almost be the character in this thing that follows your eye. So I had it kind of stay in drag, and you'll even notice the cup is giant in this. From that to this, I mean, we doubled the size. We're not really big on prop kind of stuff, or, you know, we can play with the designs. The designs are just part of the acting in this, and since none of these people are dialogue driven, at least at this level, we have to really play with the poses and stuff. So you'll see we morph the coffee cup going down, play with the smoke again. Now it gets to here, and you see we hit the pose that we want to do, and we settle down just because it's a quick move, so it's kind of a pop settle, and the coffee catches up to him. It's a good way to sort of ease the blow of pop settle, and I know that's a kind of a no in Flash sometimes, when you, especially with puppeting, when you pop and settle, it's indicative of Flash. We try to turn that down a little bit and ease it out, so you can see the trail of the coffee right there. And again, we did a debris layer right here, which was the smoke, and we wanted it to disappear. Last week we were thinking about keeping the smoke, since I made it a symbol here on top of it, but we kind of decided against it. It's not something the 90s sort of cartoons would do. being that the smoke's transparent and you would lose the black line if you put it on top. So we needed to lose it. But in order to get it back, it has to show up in front of the cycle again. And one more time. What sort of video game inspired you while making this? Well, the majority of us, in fact, I think all of us, were born in 1980. I could be wrong about Andrew. He might have reached the 70s. not to call you out, Andrew. So we were always big on NES, Super Nintendo. I think Super Nintendo, for me personally, was my favorite system. I loved Link to the Past. I wasn't a big Sega buff at all. I liked the graphics of Super Nintendo, in fact. But this one is certainly inspired by Zelda. It's a top-down adventure kind of stuff. But, and when I show you the new animation we're working on today, we're bringing in other inspirations, too, that I could show you, from Punch-Out to Mario. And in some cases, this is a beat-em-up, too, because it's not just a one sword swipe thing. You get combos, you learn moves, and we're adding a dodge to it. We're adding a dash. We keep building on Becky's library, which I'll show you guys what we did this week with her. But then we get to the fun stuff, which is the side characters. So yeah, this cycles back to the beginning, and now we got something that we could put in a background. And hopefully it doesn't look too repetitive, especially when you're moving around and kind of exploring stuff. And that's Becky right there. So you'll see it at this level here. And you'll notice the close-ups, the drawings. Wrong directions. Oh, really? You're younger than me? Oh, I guess I'm old father time. Oh, Andrew. And Artavis is our other programmer. Some say the only programmer in our neck of the woods, but that's just a dig at Cody. So, yeah, so you'll see it at this line weight, which I think is a pretty thin line weight. Now, when you see me clean up and all that stuff, you'll see a lot of imperfections, but that's sort of what makes hand-drawn animation different, and in my opinion, give it some amount of charm. You don't want to get too wonky, though. And this guy here, I got actually a better one, because we're going to get to a point where he talks to Becky. And he's a typical dad. He's like dad jokes, really corny stuff. He probably loves this mug, #1 dad, and that kind of stuff. We really want to kind of ham it up with this fella. So you get to the dad drinking coffee, you hit A, or whatever button the talk button is. Now you get to a cutscene, or not a cutscene, it'll pop right on top of the screen, and you get this animation. And you can see with these ones, we went a little more subtle, for two reasons. If we went giant, it would actually block some of the text, and we don't want that. And because the text is so important, we don't want the viewers to sort of go away and just watch the animation and kind of lose track of the mission and stuff. So we kind of just do these subtle kind of mouth movements. It's all cycle driven, and just try to do a little bit of acting with the dad. And he's a real cornball and stuff, so we're gonna really play with that. He's sort of, everything's through the eyes of Becky here, like the 7th, 8th grade girl. And I don't know if any of you remember being in 8th grade. You kind of think of your parents as these corny kind of just people kind of in your way a little bit, and that's how we're treating them. I'm grayer. Yeah, well, I'm getting there. You have all your hair. I'm losing mine, so count yourself lucky. Okay, so there is the dad. Now we're going to get to what we're working on this week. Oh, let me show you what we worked on with Becky this week, too, while the cameras were off. Because, character... Where is this? Animation... No. Becky! Right in front of me. Okay, so she has the biggest library, and we went into this last week. But we're starting to add dodges and stuff now. So we got all this stuff. We're playing around with her rotation here. because when you play the game, sometimes the movements are a little abrupt. So we're going to try to ease that in. And Cody could go into that, but I think it's something called blend tree or something like that, where the animation all lines up with the sprites in terms of programming. That's why we have to keep every movement, no matter what direction, on the same chart. So the programming can pick that up. So anyway, we're adding these dodges. Say a monster attacks Becky. Now, these are the only 3 dodges I animated. Bob did some other dodges. I could show you those too. I'll get rid of the smoke for now. So this is more of a parry, where she kind of backs it up. And then in the true fashion of what we've been doing, the sprites go back right to your normal idle pose. So if you let go of the controllers, it'll just pop back right to it. So we're trying to make this as graceful as possible so it doesn't look too jarring. So we got that. And what would happen is...
Hello from Joe Whimsy.
Hey, how you doing? Joe Whimsy Tunes, everyone. Hope all is well, dude. So what's going to happen is when someone attacks, you're going to kind of move back like that if you press the button on time. And we're still working out the kinks on that. But we want this not to be a Zelda clone either. So we're adding as much kind of beat 'em up combo kind of things. This is one of my favorite ones, by the way. I just love the way that came out. It was just kind of a happy accident when I was animating that. Got all the attacks, and by the end of Blood, I suspect this to be twice as long. We're going to have more attacks. Hey, and we got some more. Oh, look at all these. We got a bunch of viewers. This is good. We're beating last week. Okay. So now I'm going to get to what I was working on this morning for you. And we got kind of a disgruntled janitor who, we won't go too much into his character, but he has a checkered past. He's very mindful of the students, and he's kind of savvy to all the danger that's happening in this school. So I'll show you the idol first. Now this isn't finished yet, but I'll get to it. So we got the same chart as, if you guys remember last week, it's a super big ease in, ease out. Frames 1 through 13 being the extremes, 7 being the exact in between, and then easing in and easing out either way. Meaning the closer they are to the center, the closer they are to the middle drawing. And we always like to play with secondary. That's what the mop handle does. I played with the eyes a little bit. Can you give some tips about run cycles, if there'll be enough time? Oh, of course. For video games, is that what you want, or run cycles more in the traditional way? Because video games, what we did was, I'll show you Becky's run cycle.
Oh, we didn't even have any legs for...
We didn't have any legs, but it's the same principles. So these are the run cycles for her. Now, when you're playing with something this small, you really want a lot of bounce to it. Everything shot on ones for Becky. And you can see it's sort of an ease out. So that's the extreme, 4, and then ease right back in. So you kind of get this sense of gravity to it. Now when you're running, especially when you're sprinting, you spend more time in the air. Your feet spend more time in the air than your feet do actually touching the ground. Actually, your feet hardly touch the ground. So the idea is that when you spring off, you're in the air for a while, then you fall down quick. In the air for the while, fall down quick. So you want like this ease out, which flash term means you're going to kind of speed up into the air, then slow down and hit the ground impact and jump right back up. And it differs from the walk cycle where we did just the giant ease and ease out because it's a little just more graceful. And you can see it's 4 times as quick. Now, for a character with legs, it's the same principle. We do 6-frame walk cycles if you're shooting on ones. And I can actually make out a chart for you later in the... I'll rough out our run cycle for you. So we're doing the same exact thing with the janitor as the dad. We're bringing it to 6 seconds We're going to have him do a lot more than just this, but on started this one. So we kind of got the idle pose. Then he's very disgruntled, so he's going to be looking around, and he's going to be mad, and then eventually he's going to start mopping again, and then go back to this pose. But it's that's fine enough to look at for animation. But for you guys, I wanted to do something a little more exciting. So this guy springs into action when the kids are in danger, and that's what we're kind of working on now. So what I'll do is, to make sure everything's registered, I'll copy the idle animation, modify duplicate. This is called Christoph idle. Now say I want to do an attack or something, or dodge. I'll just call it whatever it is. Let me capitalize it. Okay, now everything's going to be registered. I'll just erase what I have in there for the dodge. So what I did with this one is did the exact same thing, copied it, and this is called Antic. So I'll always have the original idle animation in there just for reference, and we want to line it up right. I'll eventually get rid of it when I'm finished animating, so I kept that on the top layer. So this one, you can see we really went to extremes. I'm just going to play this first. So he's very unassuming. He's kind of a karate expert, you come to learn. And what happens, he spins, yells, and then zips off. And we have a lot of wordplay in this. We're working on a critical hit system that when you hit a character hard enough, it becomes critical and you see the word critical. And we have, if you guys played the game, you saw the boss animation that has plenty of text, kind of stuff like that. What is that? What's it? Oh, okay. So right now, what I'm going to have them do, and we'll add sound effects to this later, is we're going to start animating this bad boy. Another drink for the doctor. So I'll start with an Antic down. We pop up to this. And again, I'm going to use the same thing we were doing with the coffee mug, where there's going to be drag, pop, settle. You can see the mop head right here. Drag, pop, settle. Same with the sleeves. Right here. Settle. And then you could, we get really cartoony in this. And there's no real rules to this style, but we just want to have follow through and stuff here. So you'll see the mop starts here, goes down there. So it's this big kind of swoop like that. And that kind of helps you follow your eye. All that good stuff. So let's start roughing out some fun drawings here. So what we want to do, since this is all sprite animation and a little bit different than traditional, is we want to kind of base everything off the idle animation. So, we won't know when the player hits a certain button. So we need him to spring into action as soon as that happens. So we always have to sort of base it on the idea that you can press the button any time during the idle. So I'll always bring that in there. Now let's start roughing out. Get to animating here. I talked enough about other stuff, right? Okay, so you can see I played with the head a lot. His head is sort of this egg shape, and I wanted it to bend a lot since the beard's such a giant part of it. So I'll usually start roughing out real loose. You always use brush 2. Sometimes the pressure sensitivity is on, sometimes it's not. And I'll just start sort of with the head shape here. Start with a circle. Make sure the eye line's right. Get the ears in there. So I'll start with just a very basic shape. And all these characters are pretty basic shaped, actually. A circle nose, a V-shaped eyebrow, circle eyes. What's that?
Basic V.
Basic V. Oh, yeah. I know that all too well. Okay, so we got the head here. This is how you flip it. So that looks pretty good as an in-between. I could favor either side. Now the arm wants to swing out here. So I'm going to follow the line of action like this. The shoulder that way. Got the arm. We bend the legs. And I'm never afraid to use shift in Flash. It helps with the straight lines. We have a ton of them in these since they're basic shapes. Alright, now the mop is interesting because we see here it's kind of he's pulling out his arm that way. So the mop comes down this way. So we're going to favor that way. So the mop flips upside down, and it's not exactly a subtle move, so we can do a giant move for that here. So we got that happening. And sometimes I clean up as I go along just to get it sort of out of the way. Cleanup's sort of the arduous part, and the animating's the fun part. But I need to get rid of this frame anyway, the first one, since we don't want any repeat. Get that line. So you can see there. So now I'll show you how I clean up. And I kind of keep it that simple. I don't like to complicate the process. I know some people rough out the whole scene, then go into cleanup. I find it easier to kind of rough out the keys, clean up the keys, then in between as I go along, then clean up last in that terms. So I'm going to go to 400%. Second to last brush I found was the nicest brush for this style, especially when it's this small. You can get away with a lot. Now if you have a character that's way bigger on the screen, you're going to want to change the percentage a lot, and you're going to change the brush size a lot, or otherwise you're going to be zoomed into 2000%. No one wants to do that. You're not going to see what you're doing, and like getting a straight line all of a sudden is this giant task. So I'm going to play with the hair. Goes down like that. Hair is always a good way to get secondary action. And I'm going to finish the head here. And you can see my cleanups, I don't worry a lot about them, especially the in-betweens. This one's shot on ones in particular, so I mean it's on for literally a fraction of a second. At 25%, you're not going to catch anything. And we have so much to do in this, why waste time worrying about the small things? Anyone?
Better than animation school.
Oh yeah? Well, did you go to animation school? We all went to animation school, and I get a lot of the same complaints about it, that they don't prepare you for work, which is, isn't that why we're all here? To try to be gainfully employed? Bob and I are doing a talk at SVA in February about the state, sort of a State of the Union with SVA alongside with some animation giants in New York. We're flattered to even be a part of it since we're just a two-person studio here. But no, it's sort of it's disingenuous for these schools to take so much money and not prepare the students into a field of work. It's a trade, and we should treat it more like a trade school, where you don't need permission to make a film, and that's you're paying to make a film, and that's if your film's great, yeah, chances are you might get a job, but you need to learn the principles. You need to learn resume. You need to learn about internships, all the stuff they sort of glaze over so you can make a film, which Bob and I have been making films ever since we graduated with no one's permission, so you don't need to pay for that. It's expensive enough doing it for free. Alright, so now I'm going to just color this in just to kind of get, oop, I forgot his little cusp there.
Dong is in here.
Oh, Dong. Let me guess, the game's still not finished. Oh, we have fun with Dong. And Dong, there's new people here. You should. Dong's another. Well, he graduated with me at SVA as an animator, but right now he's making a game himself, all himself, all pixel art. It's called Neon Krager. It's an awesome looking game. It's 20 levels, I think he was telling me about it, which is insane. And it's just about ready to hit the shelves if you would just finish it, which we've been telling him to do. You can't blame us on that one, Dong. And yeah, why don't you throw up your oh, he put it up there? Yeah, why don't you just so people can check it out. Oh, he's on it. That's free promotion. I expect a cut.
Where did we study? Did you say SVA?
Yeah, we went to School of Visual Arts in Manhattan. I graduated 2003, maybe 2. I forget. Bob was a little bit after 2005. Cody was 2003. So 3 of the 5 people working on Blood graduated from SVA. Now you see, I even did some cheats here with the. It doesn't really make sense that the mop's right there, but again, since we can't get bogged down in it, and you'll never notice. You guys will. Call me out later. So what we're gonna do now is worry about getting up here. Now, I'm not in love with how fast that's gonna be, so I'm gonna just ease out a little bit. Not constantly change the timing. As long as we're done by a certain amount of seconds, we should be fine. Yeah, that's way better. And now we can do like a fun kind of frame where we're just gonna almost animate blurs or a smear frame. So these take a little more time, or not, they take less time probably in the long run. I noticed as an audience, you're always sort of paying attention to the head, sort of where all the acting's taking place. A lot of time spent on the heads and stuff, so I'll always sort of do the head first in terms of acting, and then the torso will follow. So we're gonna really smear the hell out of this one. Get the eyes up there. I'll even stretch this out a little bit. Now we have to get the mop from here to a spin. So what I usually do is just indicate with these sort of rigid edge lines. Now this will be the mop.
Rigid ass
And let's see, the hand doesn't travel too far, so we can keep that kind of more traditionally based. Alright, and we'll smear the hand, and this will be the arm. The legs can kind of stay in general. And there we go. And anytime you guys have any questions or want to see the animation slow down, just hit up Bob. He'll stop me. So you'll see here. You can thin out the eyes, actually. Those are way too big. The thinner you go, the quicker he looks. I forgot the ears. The hair will go down. It's the first, well, Cody and I started games before, but this is the first one we're this is the furthest we've gotten in games, but we've always been interested in it. I think some of our animation even reflects that, with titles such as Coin and Voltron. So, we could shoot that on 2s, I think. Keep that on 3s, and then we'll favor that side. So you can see sort of here where it's like fragmenting these things. Now what I'll do up here is keep the fragments going so it looks like a debris thing.
Oh yeah, Cody was saying that.
What?
We worked on the OKKO.
Yes. Oh, okay. Yeah. As a studio, we did do some game stuff, though we were just traditionally animating. The cutaway scenes for OKKO Let's Play Heroes. For those of you who know, OKKO is a Cartoon Network show. Really big, pretty big. I think it's on season 2 now, almost. Yeah, and Ian went to our school as well, actually, the creator of that. And he followed Exit 73 for some reason or another, and he kind of gave us an opportunity there. And we were responsible for 30 minutes of cutaways, which for just 2 guys was a big deal. So we had to hire a few people. We had a really talented intern, Lizzie Dolce, and it was a lot of late nights. Plus, my wife was pregnant at the time. My second son, he was in the NICU. He came a little early. It was a really stressful project. I always tell myself it's just cartoons, but man, do I get worked up by this stuff. So I'm going to clean this frame up now, and then we'll favor that bad boy. Now, a lot of the times I'll make the fixes in the cleanup. Like, I'm not in love with the nose being that stretched out there, so I'll just take some creative license and make sure the nose is in just a better spot there. What's nice about these cartoony projects is it's hard for a drawing to look wrong almost, especially with the smear frame. That's going up there. His hair, we're going to go down again because just the force he's driving in. All right. So we're cleaning that guy up. And just like that, the head's done. What's also nice about these cartoony characters is the head is really half the body if you really examine them, especially with these top-down games. You'll look at sprites like the aforementioned Zelda, and he's probably 3/4 of his whole sprite is just a head. And I think they did it that way because you're looking down, so you technically have a little perspective on it. But you just get a lot of mileage out of just the head shape with these characters.
Someone asked how long did Flex take?
We did that on the side. Flex Caliber is the pilot Bob and I worked on. We had a lot of help with writing from Tommy Sicca and Gary Doodles. And Gary Doodles created Breadwinners, a Nickelodeon show that got 2 seasons. But it took us... I think we started it December last year, and I think it was an 8-month kind of journey, but it was, a lot of nights, a lot of weekends, not a lot of full time on it, though when we did have days where we didn't have any work on the studio and did that. So I would say I don't know, what do you think that would take, Bob, if we were just full time? 5 or 6 months, maybe.
Say about that.
We really went balls to the wall on that because we wanted like the backgrounds to animate too, which in hindsight might have not had to happen, but we do like the look of it though. So it was a lot of fun, and we got to work with a lot of cool people, and it was nice sort of having a writer kind of show do all the work in terms of like dialogue and all that kind of stuff. And Gary helped. Yeah, and he was the musician in it too, which Flex Caliber is about a rock star that goes to hell and has to fight his way back to Earth to save rock and roll. It's a comedy. It's a crass comedy, so if you're younger or you have someone young that's going to view it with you, just you were warned. So we got this antic now, and I'm okay with passing that off. Now what I'll do eventually, I'm going to get into this side here because this is the large part where he's screaming, and I want to show you guys a stagger. So I'll come and refine that later for you guys. But right now we're just trying to get the basic animation done so this looks somewhat finished, so you guys have something to see. Now I'm going to do the debris. And we use debris in so many ways, but it really is a way to kind of polish off the end of the action. Because your eye will keep following something even though it doesn't make a lot of sense. So this is sort of just almost dust from the mop. And you can see like this is from there. to there, to there, to there. And this will eventually dissipate. We always make the debris disappear too, because you could lose your mind if you were to follow these things all the way back down. Like, I notice a lot of people do that with rocks and stuff when they have an explosion. And my suggestion is always, as they're in the air or starting to hit their pinnacle and fall down, just start letting it disappear. I mean, it still looks realistic. It's an interesting kind of method. So yeah, we'll probably extend that a little bit so we can disappear. But right now, so I did the same principle with the head. It's sort of almost like the hair or the sleeves in this way. Or the body hit its peak, then it catches up. Now, that's not necessarily a realistic action move, but for cartoons, I love doing that stuff. So what I'm going to do is turn off the head right now. We're going to focus on the body. So this is the last frame I want for the body before we go down into this antic. So we're going to do an extreme with this to really cartoonify it. And I separated the arms and the torso here. Just show you guys how you guys might want to approach it if you're just learning animation or something. Sometimes it helps to separate things so you could focus on one thing or another. So the body, the shirt is up here. Oh, and like I said, when we're referencing other games, I put a bandage on his stomach as a callback to King Hippo from the good old Mike Tyson's Punch-Out! I think he's in a few other Punch-Outs too. So we're going to have the body kind of go up a lot higher for this because it's such a big move. Brush 2. Is that brush 2? So the body mass is going to go up, and yet you want to be mindful of the volume in these sort of things. Since he's pretty much an egg shape, like right there, we want to keep sort of the same mass. So we're going to have that go up. The pant legs are going to go up like that. The stomach will go up. The body hair, all that stuff. The legs will go up eventually. But what I want to do for an extra layer of animation is the shirt doesn't go up. It's going to be a drag first. So we're going to keep the shirt down here right now, and we'll reveal his stomach popping up. So I did the rough. As you can see, I know where the bandage is, but in the cleanup you won't even see it. So I'll keep that rough up here, say, just to have an extra one. Copy. Alright. So now again, and I know this is not exactly how other animators work. We do things sort of from an efficiency standpoint, so I want to get this cleaned up so I don't have to worry about cleaning up later. And I know a lot of, especially old school animators, they're going to rough out everything a bunch of times. And to be honest, that's probably the better way to learn. It'd be just to get loose and, do all your drawings that way. But I know these characters pretty well now, and I'm taking the liberty of sort of cleaning up as I'm going on, just because, again, it's a time thing, and at the end of the day, I want something cleaned up so we can start putting this stuff in the game and not worrying about, cleaning up one day. We're just going to do it right as we go along here. It's also for sanity purposes, I find, too, for me, because when roughs always look amazing and all that jazz, but when you clean, then you say you rough out something one day and then you're back to it the next, you're gonna kind of lose track of what line is what and all that stuff. So it could be a little dangerous, especially if you're kind of parceling off animation. Now this cleanup, I'm not in love with that line. So what I'll do is just kind of chop it off, continue the line. I'm going to blame that one on White Claw, but I'm going to take another sip too. I can't blame all my problems on them. So I'm going to keep this here so I know exactly where I want the stomach. Or the bandage on the belly. So it's right there. So we'll keep it right there. Now, what I'm going to do is a giant settle. Which is, it starts here, it's going to settle there. So we're going to do an ease out. And I'll kind of rough out a chart here. And I settle on 2s. I'll do quick actions on 1s. I'll do smear frames on 1s. That's always important. But I'll try to settle on 2s with 1s peppered in there and stuff. But near the end, here we can even move that way. But near the end of the action, it's 2s, 3s. I've seen 4s, 5s, and they all look great when you do that. You know, you could really spend a lot of time doing in-betweens, but whatever fools the audience eye is what you want to kind of play with, and that's the sweet spot. So now, what happens with the shirt, the force of it is going to make it shoot up. So it's sort of a secondary action. Now again, it's going to be a volume thing, so we're going to worry about the volume. So that's his torso, in other words. The rest of it he can kind of rough out pretty easily. Now the shirt's going to shoot up. And you know what? I forgot the lines on the shirt. Another White Claw mistake. We're going to keep that there. Alright, keep those lines. Now the lines will be thinner on this one because it's stretched out. So now it's going to stretch out. Now with my old Ralph, I know exactly where the bandage is. We can even raise the shirt up even more, I think. I think it'll look funnier. Kind of like that. Now the bandages are right here. The hair is going to go up like that. The feet, you can kind of just, it's so close now, I don't even bother roughing it out. I'll just hit that up and clean out. So now we got this kind of funny antic where his shirt's kind of revealed. And then as the body slows down, going up, the shirt's going to kind of fall at a different rate. Because this is its pinnacle. And you know when a ball is in the air, it kind of hovers in there, then starts flowing down. So I'll show you how to do that next after I clean this one up. And that's where kind of layers can help you. Though you can go layer crazy, and at the end of the day, this is just one section of one sprite, so we can't go too nuts with it. We do have other projects we have to work on. Okay, so I'm going to clean this up now. Again, brush, whatever, 7 or 8 that is, second from the bottom. This is all MX, by the way, for any of you guys, Flash MX, that didn't join us last week. We use Adobe Animate on other projects that, you know, commissioned work where we have to kind of coordinate with other entities. But if given the option, we'll always try to float back to MX. I personally like the way it draws better. I like the undo system better. And there's a litany of things I like better than what's happening with Adobe Animate. And not that it's unusable, but it's not very usable. Let's just put it that way. I think they're kind of a victim of adding too much to it and kind of losing the thread of what they wanted to do with it, which is we're trying to animate here. We're not trying to make it After Effects because I don't know if they know this, but they own After Effects and we have that. So let's, again, try to keep things simple, and then we'll worry about the extras when you master the other things. I've heard people complain about the drawing brushes. People.
July said you don't pay for it either.
No, yeah, no, we own this. strange enough. We're not renting this one. Yeah, that's an. Yeah. Again, I could start another Twitch channel just making fun of them, or what I have complaints about. But at the end of the day, we can use it still, but it's frustrating. So we got this shirt now. Let's see. Now I'm gonna do an ease out on this, and we're still gonna ease out the body, but ease in on the shirt. So the shirt's kind of gonna stay up here for a little bit. It's gonna fluff out here because you want it to sort of stay up there so you see it, and then it'll kind of gracefully float down while the body's kind of hitting on a different rate. So that's what I'll do for the shirt. And now these are so close, I don't even really need to rough them out to get a sense of how I would approach that. So I'm going to keep that up here. Wrong color. We're going to keep the edges up higher. The center part is sort of going to fall first since it furrows out. And then the rest we can sort of in between on its own, I think. All right. There we go. And you'll notice when you get a sense of these characters, especially with a brush this thick, you'll build a certain amount of confidence where you won't need to really rough this out, because you're really just trying to hit between these lines at a certain point. Once you kind of establish the acting and the big moves, the rest is sort of just almost math. You just want to hit the middle part of it. Now there's cases where you want to favor certain sides and stuff, but for something this small and this cartoony, kind of best to try to hit the middle. At MagFest, I was drawing on paper for people who were playing the game if they wanted a character, and I kept wanting to hit undo. It's one of those things that computers sort of, we're in an age now where I do something in real life and I just imagine there's a Control Z there for it, and I remember I fell up or down a subway stair when I was living in the city, and I wasn't even embarrassed. I'm like, oh, I'm just going to undo that. But I, fell straight on my face in front of 35 commuters. like the first instinct I had was, whatever. No, that's what undo's for. So now we're going to just shoot on this one so the shirt shoots up. Now when it's going up, we're going to kind of favor down. So it almost pops. And favor that line, and we're going to do that so. Alright, so now we can see. And you can kind of feel the weight of him. He's this big burly fella. So every kind of settle will be slower. And what I'll do is keep everything on the same chart. We're trying to give the illusion of frame by frame animation here. And we're drawing frame by frame, but when the second it goes off chart, like if I wanted to have a different timing for, say, the sleeve and not the body, it's going to look a little choppy. And that's not what we're shooting for. It should look like it's all done on one piece of paper. And that's what we did with Flex too. We were doing all the acting and lip sync last, so the head was sort of just had to match the rest of the body, so it looked like as if it was being drawn on one sheet of paper, which would take a lot longer. But there's cheats with Flash where now we can reuse this body on something else if we ever needed to. And in terms of sprite animation, a lot of reuse is probably a good thing, as Andrew would always tell us. We're kind of going animation crazy with this one. Alright. Let's go here, finish this one off. Now you're going to see just the bottom of this. Since it's up there, we're going to favor that a little lower, since that's not the hit. Oh no, it's actually higher. I'm sorry. Since his body was a little higher. We'll just favor those sides up there. And then it'll float down. Now when I ease out, a lot of people will just like go to the exact same frame. I kind of shoot on 4s first to ease out on some of these bigger moves, because otherwise it's just going to look really fast and then just kind of shimmery at the end. And for those who don't know what shimmer is, it just looks like a trace back. Alright. Okay, so now we can just do everything by eye. This is going to float down gracefully while the rest just settles in. Alright, got the shirt going here. And well, we already hit an hour and I only got 6 drawings done? Jeez. You always think you're faster than you are, aren't you? That's always the case with drawing. When I used to work at Augublick Studios, I was one of the lead animators there. And we'd always have dailies or, you know, sometimes after lunch we would have to circle back and tell, you know, circle back and showcase what we were finished with, how much longer. And I'd always say, oh, I just have about an hour left, just another hour. Be there till 11 at night finishing the thing that I thought was going to be done by lunch. And it's funny with animation, it's such a labor-intensive thing, but it's a labor of love because, you know, who doesn't like this would bother drawing 24 of the same thing, just slightly manipulated for 1 second of acting. So we got that. And then these two will ease out. And I won't bore you with those in between, so we're going to hit up the arms. Now with the arms, we kind of got dueling actions here because one's going up and one's going down. Same exact chart and same exact principle with the shirt. So I'm going to keep... Actually, let me color this, else it's going to drive me crazy. What do we got? What do you think about cartoons made with fixed thickness brush? Now, I know that's an Animate thing. I always sort of like the idea that everything is the same thickness no matter what the shot is. I find, especially with flash animations, when it's symbol based, you know, you can get a close up and it looks kind of, yeah, you know, crappy because it's so thick. And then when it's super small, you don't even see what's going on. It looks like no holding line. So when you sort of stick to a line weight, like say it's a wide shot, you're always going to use brush 4 or something. It's going to have a different design than when, say, you're at a close-up. So I personally like the idea of keeping that kind of consistent. And it looks like it was drawn with the same pencil, which I think, you know, if I'm not mistaken, is what sort of we want. And that's sort of what the founding fathers of animation had to do. So, you know, there was no, you know, when they were making Pinocchio, I'm sure they would love to drag in a symbol, but we had to draw him getting eaten by a whale at a certain percentage. And, you know, different field guides and stuff, but kind of same pencil and same thickness as all the cells were cleaned up on. Okay, now I can rest easy knowing that's gone. So what I'll do is kind of onion skin that stuff so I see exactly where the arm is and where I can go with it. He throws the mop in the air and that's see-through, the mop, which is something I kind of railed against with the smoke, but for something like when you're spinning animation, it doesn't bother me, and I can't really explain why it doesn't bother me there, but bothers me elsewhere. Now the same exact principles, he's shooting his arm up. He's throwing it up as hard as he can. So the sleeve, the hand's going to be further up and thinned out. But the sleeve, especially since it was coming from this direction, will probably be down like that. So you kind of want to know exactly what direction the force is coming from. Alright, so let's clean this up. Another thing about breaking it up in layers is, you can get away with a lot more. Like, I won't have to rough out as many of these sort of drawings because I'm just kind of focusing on 5 fingers, as opposed to the mass of the torso or the detail in the face. And again, it's sort of about volume. Like, this is thick, that's thin, but he's kind of stretching it out. But as, it doesn't even have that line there. So the force of this sleeve, it's shooting this way, remember, so it'll actually hit that edge now to go over there, while the hand remains like that. So let's rough that out. All right. So let me get into that one. And we're going to shoot that one over there. And that'll hit the contour of the arm. You always have to kind of be wary of drawing through and making sure it makes sense, because these, even though it's 2-dimension, you want to keep in mind that we're given the illusion of a 3D character here. So if I shot this too far over here and kept the arm over there, it wouldn't make sense, and you have to kind of be wary of the shoulder and all that nonsense. So we got that arm. Now that's going to start. Now the arm's going to start settling back with the sleeve in this case. So I'll start with the sleeve first with the cleanup. Follow the line. And follow the thumb. And we try not to complicate the hands, because I know a lot of, when you're starting off, I remember having a real hard time with the hands. So we kind of just do these almost Mickey Mouse hands, where it just round tubes almost. All right. So here we go. And then the one in the front where we shoot the sleeve back to where it has to belong. So I'll probably rough this one out. We also have Bob working on sound effects for the game. At MagFest we had the luxury of it being so loud in there, so we got away with some of the sound effects being a little rushed, if you will. So that's what we're doing. That's what Bob's working on now. Oh, and Andrew, if you're still there, what's the New York festival we got into? I think it's Playcraft or something like that. But Blood got into a New York-based festival that, if any of you New Yorkers want to come and talk in person or check out the game, we'll have a little more finished. We're polishing up the demo right now, which stands at about 20 minutes if you're fast at it, probably around 40 if you're just starting. And you can see we kind of ease out there. And we're going to treat the head the same way. Let Let me color that, then I'll hit the other arm, which is going in the different trajectory. Oh, Playcraft Winter Experiment, February 2nd. Yeah, if any of you guys are in New York, want to stop by, we'll have the game ready to play. And everyone who seemed to play it had a good time. It really is a pretty fun game where we're crafting on. If I don't want to, at the risk of sounding, braggish and stuff, but it's something we all really care about. Everyone's really bringing their A game to it. And it's a real fun play so far, and people seem to enjoy it. I think it's a unique look in terms of gameplay anyway. Not a lot of games go in this cartoony element. I'm glad kind of Cuphead paved the way for traditional animation to be part of this world. Because it's kind of marrying my two favorite things, video games and animation. So... again, it's the same principle. This hand's gonna, can use the right color, shoot out far. I'll play with the thumb to be a little further, really give it the force. Actually, I'll probably bend the hand like that way, just so it feels a little more forced. And the sleeve, gonna do that.
Yeah, we're gonna. Well, this will be available after.
Oh, kind of.
I'll open it up on YouTube.
Oh, someone's asking about that. Yeah, wait a minute. From Jamaica. Service sucks. Will this be available to watch? Oh, yeah, yes. We're going to post this on our YouTube page. What's our YouTube? Exit 73 Studios. If you just look up that, we're going to post it, and it's called Drawing Blood Episode 2. We'll probably post it right afterwards, after we edit out all my mistakes. But no, all the lessons will be there for the viewing public. And someone's asking about...
Oh, the halftones.
Yeah, the halftones. That's Bob's question, because he's our After Effects guru, and it was all masking and all that stuff, so...
It was really, I don't know, we just had one...
It was...
We used color replace, right?
It was color replace...
Like we used a certain color for cheeks and stuff, and we...
Yeah, a lot like green screening, I guess, where we put a certain color that we knew wasn't exist inside the cartoon, and wherever that color showed up, it would mask on that sepia tone kind of stuff.
Because we didn't move it, right? It stayed still, yeah.
No, we didn't want to move it because the creative that Vincent Scala has a very unique look in terms of his art and stuff. So we wanted to really keep true to all that. And he has a very inky and watercolory kind of design going there. And, it's easy to like draw in Flash, but getting all that kind of detail, especially if you're trying to mimic an artist, that's where After Effects really comes in handy, because that's all Photoshop, and that we animate everything in Flash, but all the post work, we rarely just send it from Flash to post. To YouTube or anything. I think the two marry nicely. And no, that was a fun little project we worked on. It was part of the Nickelodeon shorts we did, and that was a while ago. When was that? It feels like years ago. Probably was. And no, we ended up doing 4 shorts for Nickelodeon when they were still doing shorts, and those were fun. We like the short form stuff, where you're just kind of responsible for a few minutes of animation. You could really focus on them looking nice without the burden of worrying about, oh gosh, we have to make a 20-minute episode, which 2 people would have a real hard time with. Though we did make a few bigger projects, I suppose. All right.
Did we do model sheets for this?
No, Not at all, actually. We never really hung around model sheets too much, especially with our own stuff. There's only two of us animating, so we never really, and we sit right next to each other, so we could always grab reference if we need to. And I found sometimes, especially with the cartoonier stuff, model sheets almost hinder you because you're too focused on, is the head this right size, or what's his profile look like, and stuff like all that, which could sort of bog you down when you want to do cartoonier stuff. We sort of the Ren and Stimpy approach on a lot of our stuff, where if it looks good in a certain scene, then we won't worry about the model. We know it's the character. We know who it is, and as long as it looks funny or fun, then we're kind of okay with it being off model if it needs to be. So you see he shoots out his arm there. And the sleeve. So you see you get all this secondary stuff, which kind of brings it to a new level, because it's easy to just overshoot and settle and, call it a day. And that looks nice too for certain things, but this one we really wanted to play with how manic this character is. So, like, anything that can act manic on top of him, including his clothes, we can get away with a lot there. Because I like... Yeah, no, well, the thing with model sheets, to Joe Whimsy Tunes, is when you send it overseas or you have a giant team, when I used to work at Augenblick, we did Ugly Americans and sent it to Canada. So model sheets were super important. It wasn't, it's not a clinical or non-clinical thing. It's something they needed because we're just throwing them boards and they're expected to go to post with it. So we needed to really focus on what was right. And a lot of the characters were asymmetrical and stuff. So if the scar was on the wrong side, there'd be all these problematic things happening there. So... No, they have their place. And in this kind of global economy now that we have with cartoons, it's, if you're sending this overseas, they need to know what's happening because they're sort of an animation mill at that point. All right, so we're up to the head with this one. And then I'm going to move on to this. You don't need to watch me in between the little stuff. You guys get it. Now I want him to scream with this one. So there's two ways we could do it. I'll probably animate the tongue last, but I'll show you a simple kind of tool that I wanted to... principle we use for screams and stuff. Say you had a character screaming. I'm going to separate the tongue. I'll just do it simple. And we'll keep his eyes closed. Okay, say that was the one of them, and you want to overshoot because he popped up and screamed. So I'm going to really make the mouth big. And I'm just doing this because it'll be faster than me cleaning up him. But I'm going to use the same exact principles. So when we post this next week, the finished animation, you'll know exactly what I did. So then what I'm going to do is an ease out, which we talked about. So I'll have to do it at the same line weight, but so I'm just going to in between it naturally. Straight ahead, then I'll show you what to do to kind of give it more life, more manic energy, because yeah, this guy, and especially when it's small, any advantage you can get to make it look kind of more lively or manic, it's going to play with this guy's character a lot. Could probably and this works with tweens as well. If like you have puppet animation, this is a really nice trick to kind of get it out of the Flash world if that's what your intentions are. All right. So. All right. So we got this guy, say he pops up and screams. Alright, so you got a guy down here and you want him to pop up and scream, so, like that. Which looks fine. You could get away with it. So we're going to shoot this. So keeping this on ones right now. Now if you guys could see my timeline. You're going to take the extreme, and you could take those two. And those are kind of the last two extremes. Then you're going to take the middle frame and what I call staggering. So you can see I'm kind of taking the frame before and switching them. And you can kind of stagger it at the end too. So you got this kind of new thing, which if you're so angry and you're screaming at the top of your lungs, all of a sudden you would have all these kind of shakes in it. So, you know, and that's kind of what I'm going to do with this character, Kristoff, when I finally in between the whole thing. You had to in between the whole thing first. I mean, you could get away with it otherwise. But you're going to want to in between the thing naturally first. And then what I want to do with the tongue is kind of do like a wiggle. So I'm going to do the tongue actually on another layer too. So the tongue will be here, then there, and I'll get this kind of scream thing that will go on top of the stagger. So that's hard to sort of in between unless you really know what you're doing, and I don't really know what I'm doing that good. So you get this kind of screaming tongue while the jaw is kind of pulsating and stuff. So you almost want to separate the tongue in this case. Now I can do it just by regular in betweening here. And sometimes staggering the tongue like that actually looks good as well. All right. So, what I do with this, since the nose changes volume, kind of set up my path of action for that with the bigger in-betweens like this. Since this is a direct in-between between the two. Now his eyes aren't revealed, but his eyebrows still follow the same direction. The eyes slowly get started to being revealed. The top of his head gets shown, and the rest is sort of a pretty simple in between. All right, now the mouth goes accordingly. And that's another reason I separated this character to this degree. It's a lot of, his tongue would go over here. Now the tongue is going to go over here this time, since the stagger is going to work that way. So, and then we could do a circle almost, like the tongue can then go over here. Kind of circle in. Now, if this was like traditional this would require a lot of roughs because you're doing so much secondary action. So you would start with just almost this guy naked with just a circle head, and then worry about the beard and all that stuff as you start cleaning up and roughing out a little bit better. But this sort of expedites things. As long as you're staying on the same chart, it never really has been an issue for us. Though when you do it on paper and stuff, and you do those roughs and you shoot them on, the light box and all that stuff, it does have a charm that almost nothing can replicate that. And I know a lot of people have been chasing that. We were lucky enough to be part of this documentary that's coming out soon called Hand-Drawn Animation. And so many of they got a ton of people to be part of it, like Bill Plimpton, and there's what's some of the other ones, Bob? Yeah, I'm drawing a blank.
People that work on Cuphead, though.
Yeah, a lot of people who worked on Cuphead, and they did everything traditionally there. And you see their pencil tests and stuff, and it just I don't know if people who aren't animators appreciate it, but as someone who spent the majority of the last 20 years doing it, it's really something to behold. But boy, is it time consuming. So we got him kind of phasing out, and I want to add the furrow to his brow. Didn't do that. And we'll start adding the line to his eye as he comes down, as we get more of his cheek. So right now I'm just going to traditionally animate that, or just straight in between this, and then we're going to worry about the stagger as we finish cleaning up next week, because I want to get to some of the more fun stuff for you guys. But as long as we get everything on the same chart for this guy, I'm okay with that. Now the tongue, it ends up here, and it's swinging that way, so we're going to swing it this way as it kind of does a full 360. Now his hair is kind of showing up on this one. Alright, that's good enough for me. Alright, here we go. Alright. The eye in there, the mouth, and the aforementioned tongue. Now the teeth and the tongue. The back of the throat. Okay. And the ear and the hair. That's another part of parceling this off. You could really just kind of crank them out all of a sudden. And I forgot the furrow again. What's going on here? Alright, then the last one, and then everything's on the same chart. We're approaching the 1.5 hour mark, and I got this. Alright, so this one, his mouth starts as a little O and it gets really big. So we're gonna smear the nose, smear the mustache. We're gonna open up the mouth to be a lot like that. Start showing the teeth. The tongue shoots up. The eyes go back. a little too big. And like that. Yeah, that'll do. I always make my roughs red at the end, just so I can have a little more clarity too when I'm cleaning it up. So the nose in this case is a lot like the rubber ball animation that you guys probably all started with as students, or when you're just first learning animation, where just you really change the volume a lot, or not the volume, you change the shape. The volume always stays the same, but that's why we're keeping these characters simple. All right. Get this guy done. And the hair sort of lost, and we're going to add the furrow again. Okay, so we can color this, and then everything's on the same chart. And again, I won't bore you guys by cleaning the rest of this up, because it's just, you kind of get where I'm going with this, and the timing's there. Let's color them now, because I want to get to some more of those smear frames. And the next frame is a lot of the same thing. Secondary, ease in, ease out. Ooh, I missed a spot. I missed his beard here. That we could just in between. Not there. All right. Okay, let's color the tongue next. Teeth. Got this guy's beard. All right. Oh, I forgot the eyes are the same color as the teeth here. All right, now what I did here with the shadow under the head is that's just a group, and I know you can't animate groups and or you can't tween groups in what's it called, animate, but in MX when times were simpler, you surely could. So I'm just going to time that out like that, then undo.
It
So
also comes back. They don't want you at the time.
no, yeah, sometimes when you animate groups and then you have to alter them, then it's not a symbol. Okay, so we got this move. Now, this will be a quick move down to here. And this, you'll see the chart I have right here. So that's going to be the ease out schedule too. And it's exactly the same thing I did here. The mob is going to have secondary. The sleeves have drag, then secondary. So you saw me in between that. You don't need any more info on that. So what I'm going to do now is get from here to there, which are the fun drawings here. And actually, I could do a fun drawing here. We'll do that. We'll do this one. And then we kind of have the timing roughed out for this. Now, if we're in a crunch, I can send this over to Cody. If this was placed in the game now as is, as a demo, you know, no harm, no foul. You know, the pain in the butt thing would be to re-export it again for him. But if we have this guy and he's integral to the game, we need to throw it in there. Hello, don't mind the name. What do you choose /MX? Okay, yeah, you must, well, we did, I worked in Flash MX for the last 15 years, so it was just something I grew up with, so I'm probably very biased to it, but we found the drawing a lot easier in MX. The brush was kind of wonky in Animate, and we were finding like editing the symbols being a little wonky and all this kind of stuff.
Can't edit the symbols.
Yeah, so for something that we're just using as pure drawing application with some camera moves and stuff, we just decided that MX was going to be the simpler way to go, just because we're familiar with it. Now I know people who favor CS3 because they were a little younger than myself, and the industry standard then was CS3, but I don't find a lot of people who grew up with the older versions kind of favoring Adobe Animate. But I think I'm in the minority because that's where everyone's kind of going right now anyway, is Adobe Animate. But I have nothing really against it per se. It just, I find it quicker to just kind of go back to what I'm familiar with, especially for passion projects like Blood.
And the crashing,
It crashes a lot.
I mean, we were using it the other day and it crashed.
It crashes a lot, but we are also using Windows 7 because we're using MX, so that might be part of it. Though I've heard similar people complain that it crashes a lot. So, no, it's the same principles we would use though if we had to use Animate. As you know, we'd be very drawing centric and all that stuff. Uh-oh, what does that mean?
New subs.
New subscriber. I'll drink to that. Cody, did you take a sip? I know Dong wants to drink. Alright, so this one's kind of going to be another one of those smear frames that I did over here. So we got the head kind of. The head is so close in nature that we have to to smear that might be a little wonky. But this arm shoots back. This arm shoots back over here, so we're gonna kind of just smear the hand. Oh, Dong's ready, yeah. I'm with Dong. It's Friday. We worked hard all week. Do any of you work in the animation industry? I'm ready for that. Any New York animators out there in the Twitchverse? Okay, so we'll favor that arm that way. Actually, we're just gonna we'll smear this arm. That'll look good, actually. Kind of learned this smear trick in OKKO. I was watching a lot of their stuff, and they just kind of did simple shapes like that. It was super effective. I love the cheat. It was almost like Johnny Bravo. And we'll smear the feet rather. So that goes down like that. Oh, Jamaican anime. Okay.
Motherfucker was saying the stroke looks great. He thought it was the line tool.
Oh, did he? Yeah, we use line tool a lot. Animator from the Philippines here. Whoa! Wow. What time is it in the Philippines? Are we waking you up or keeping you up? I'm bad with geography. We went to Baltimore. I just thought it was next to Chicago. I was like, why is it so much lighter here? It's like, isn't it just west? Bob was like, no, it's Washington, D.C. I'm like, oh. So. I'm not here drawing further. Yeah, no, the frame by frame stuff, I always circle back to it. And I don't, it's funny, it's been around for probably 125 years, and it doesn't seem to grow tiresome. You know, it keeps reinventing itself. It's, you know, the name, especially entertainment, like in entertainment, name another sort of thing that lasted that much. There's something in animation that is part of the human condition almost, because people are just fascinated by watching it. So, and no, you know, we talk to a lot of producers, people affiliated with animation but not animators themselves, and they're always, you know, not to complain, but they're kind of looking for ways to kind of expedite or get rid of the animation and stuff, and I you know, they always sort of have to rely back on the artist and stuff. So I don't know what that means, but it's sort of fascinating to me, just the idea of animating. That you start with a blank piece of paper or blank screen, and 8 hours later, at the end of your workday, you have something, and that wasn't there. It's unlike a lot of jobs, I feel like, in that regard. Though I'm sure, like, you know, someone who whittles wood feels the same way about, like, IKEA that I do about the big, you know, the bigger studios. All right. What is it? What exercise? Oh yeah. No, we have to. We don't do paper. Is the thing we try to mimic paper as best we can, but it's a economics thing too, because we can sit here and scan and stuff. But when we were talking about OKKO a little bit ago, we found out when we were working on the game that they were still drawing that whole show on paper, which it was funny to learn that in, you know, circa 2018. And I think it shows too in that show. You really see the line quality, which is the show is just chock full of charm. Oh, another subscriber. You guys are gonna get me drunk. 2 drinks equals Chris. Well, that's that's me getting drunk though. If this was 3 hours, I'd just be on the floor.
Retracting all the things.
Like, what are you talking about? What blood? No, but it's a cool industry. I do like being part of it. It does have its pitfalls though, and there's times when, you know, we were looking for work last week. You know, I'm 40 years old. I can't be doing this forever. Okay, so we're gonna do a smear frame, and you see the hand kind of shoots up there. Everything else I keep up, just kind of as a traditional in between. But we're gonna have to do something with the mop too, and I'll do that on a separate layer because I kind of want to do the debris trick that I was showing earlier. Now, if someone were to stop me and show this in between and say what's going on here on the street, I couldn't answer you, but we try to keep in betweens just quick and loose and fun, and the rest will follow, I find with lip sync too, actually, if you're familiar with lip syncing in Flash, as long as you end well with lip sync, everything sort of works. I don't know what that means. Now, you'll see the belt disappears here, but it's because the shirt's going to go over it and behind the smear. So we got this guy going quick, wah, and we could probably shoot that on ones. Let's see what that looks like. And that's another nice part about Flash. You can always change the timing like this. I kind of like that better, actually. Now, Lazy Chris wants to go and do this. But, as you can see, that doesn't even look right. So, Lazy Chris loses again. So we're going to we can almost get away with just a smear frame, I think, right? Like, we'll have the mop almost up here. Almost like that. Because that goes down and over there. Almost like that. We'll follow through like that. Yeah. That'll work better. Um, I'm a New York animator, but I make games. Haven't done any straight animated pieces in a few years. Oh, what games have you made? Do you guys still do a little hand drawn stuff too? I was playing with it at MagFest actually, on paper when someone was playing the game and if they wanted a drawing, I would draw one of the characters. So I do dabble in it, but the majority of my day is spent at the studio, so we're drawing most of the things on paper here. When I go home to my kids, my oldest son always likes me to draw stuff, so I'll doodle with him, but nothing real serious in terms of hand-drawn stuff on paper that I would show anyone outside a toddler. And it was tough getting back into it at MagFest because I'm so accustomed to Control Z and Control X. Like I would like the head shape. I would draw a few of the Becky characters, and I was like, "Oh, this head shape's nice." And my first instinct was, I'll just cut it and paste it and put it over there. And it's like, oh wait, I'm way in the corner here. It's just paper. I can't do that, and it really takes me a second to figure out that I'm not. There we go. That's better. So what we could do, since it's a mop, we can even add water to it, which might be nice when it comes up there. Actually, I might make that water. Do you have a page on Facebook or Instagram? No. Everything I draw would be indicated in the studio, or the studio's Instagram. But it's all Bob or myself that's doing the drawing, so you kind of get a sense of our style from our Instagram. A lot of it's been dedicated to blood and stuff, but we have other stuff we're trying to promote now. Yeah, no, it would make a great prize. Maybe we're sending out mailing lists and stuff, and maybe we can do some hand-drawn art for, the people that get into the ground floor early with blood. All right. Well, we're rounding up. We have about 18 minutes left, though there's no rule. So I'm going to do the cool frames now, or the fun frames, where you can see here they go down. So we're just going to ease out of that. Add some debris here. And then the timing for this, I can sign off on, I think. Let me do that debris so it's everything on the right timing. And then, the boring stuff like watching me in between that is not worth, showcasing, in my opinion. I want you guys to get a sense of the timing and what we're going for here, but the kind of the minutia work, the less glorious work is, that's neither here nor there. Also, what I could do, since I made this a symbol, is I could raise that higher, and it kind of gets to that point, so I could start it up here. Kind of floats down. That might be fun. Let's see what that looks like. I might have to go up first. Yeah, that could be fun. It's puppety, but what I eventually synchronize symbols. I'm gonna do is put everything on ones or shoot this move on twos. And I'm probably apt to do it on twos because when you shoot on ones this long, it ends up looking digital even if it is traditional, or vice versa. So we say you add a sound effects to here, and a lot of this, might even be considered done for certain games, but what we're trying to do is really do it the 1990 cartoon way, and that means we're going to have to go the extra mile on a lot of this. So anyway, let me do another smear frame. Now this is something I've seen almost a lot in the cartoonier anime stuff that I want to play with this one. And that's sort of just doing just really basic smear frame shapes. And it's sort of like, what I like about this guy sort of disappears, and that's a very kind of anime-centric kind of move. So what I'm going to do is just play with the color on this one and see what that looks like on ones. Worst comes to worst. Erase it and start over. The mop we're going to keep normal. Oh, someone's calling you out, Dong. Are you going to ask when his game's finished too? Yeah, that'll work. No, Dong, we should have you visit the studio one Friday, and I want people to see your game too, because he was a big supporter of Blood. The reason we know about MagFest is because of Dong, because he's been on making his game for a while now, and I think if you're into games, you should definitely check out what he's making, because not a lot of people could do it all themselves, and he made a full game, and not just a full, you buy the game, get a real experience kind of thing. So that's nothing to sneeze at. Maybe we'll get Andrew out here too. I think it's a little bit of a commute for Cody. Let's see. So what I'm doing here is very basic kind of colors and shapes, and since it's shot on ones, I don't think you're gonna really pick up on it that it's so crude. But this is also how I kind of like to learn new ways to do it too, is just through experimentation. So let's, I mean, you could, look at that, that's crazy. Let's see if it works. Yeah, we'll make that gray. Why not? So my rationalization is that's the head, that's the beard, that's the ear. Let's see. This will be interesting if this works. On ones, I have a feeling it will. Yeah, that's nice. Yeah, that. What am I wasting time in betweening for? I could just do this. Okay, so that I'm gonna favor up. Now I'm gonna change the timing of this because I think that's a funny pose to kind of favor. And you can see how crude these are. I mean, this looks like a child's room. Now, again, it's sort of about the volume thing. You'll find that animation is just a few principles, and then you kind of just wing it. So we got the knee stretched out here. Now we kind of want to arch the back, start going. Imagine a drop of water drops. You know, you got a drop of water. It ripples out, and then it circles back and jumps in. And that's sort of what we're going to do here. So this will kind of ripple up and kind of like that, since we're going to favor that side. And what I'll do is play with the drag of the face on this. So we'll keep the face down here still, but it's going to start moving up. It's a volume thing. And the nose can actually keep going down. So it's like the trajectory of the face, but the eyebrows will start going up. The hair is going to start falling down. Not that you'll see it at that rate. Ears up. Ears up. We'll keep the feet like that. The face is blocking most of it. Now since we're sort of animating the mop the whole time, the mop's going to start falling this way. The stick's going to not be revealed. That's his sleeve, so we're going to start going up. Forget the hand for now. That sleeve's going to go up. We might shoot that on twos. Let's see what that looks like. Really? Yeah, I kind of like it on twos because you kind of follow through with the broom or the mop. And as long as, again, we hit on the 3.5 second mark, we have plenty of time. Oh, is someone going to another expo? Oh, these spears, yeah. Yeah, I'm doing Johnny Bravo kind of tricks on this one.
Dirty Johnny Bravo.
And it's really these action ones that you get to play with a lot. You know, most of the game... well, I guess a lot of it's dialogue driven now, but most of the game will be a lot of action and stuff. So when you're reaching these new enemies and stuff, you're going to see a lot of this kind of stuff, and it serves a few purposes when you're thinking about a game. And we had to constantly remind ourselves that this is a game, so it's not exactly the same rules as animation in terms of like what's best for the acting. Now, when you're talking that, you know, you want the acting to be top notch, but so for instance, when you hit a button in a game, you want it to react right away. So what does that make? So what does that mean in terms of animation? Now, if you hit jump or run or dash, you have to have that right away. So the first thing's going to be a giant ease out, or an ease in rather, which isn't always the case in animation. In fact, you know, it's often the opposite. You start stationary, then ease into it, kind of slowing it up. So, but for a reactionary thing, we're kind of doing the opposite. So we always have to keep that in mind. Now, this guy has to react right away when something happens in the game. So that's why we started with the idle, and the first frame, you know, we're going to lose that frame, and the first frame is this all of a sudden, which you wouldn't necessarily start a lot of animation that way. But this being a game, you know, we have to keep in mind that the sort of the control is the indicator of what makes the game what it is. Otherwise, you're kind of just watching a story, an interactive story unfold. And, you know, it's important that the controls are right for this, because in an action-adventure game, if it's not, you're kind of barking up the wrong tree. And that's all Cody. Alright. Let's see here. Someone else write something? Oh, someone just joined us. What's going on? Oh wait, is someone asking? Speaking of which, are you animating in 24 frames per second, converting it to 60 seconds in Unity, or are you animating at 60 frames from the jump? We're animating everything in Flash from the 24-second standpoint. Then in Unity, you'll see there's a little bit of floatiness. There's a part in it where these tentacles shoot eyes at Becky, and when we pan the eyes at 24 frames a second, it moves a certain way, and this one moves a little bit smoother. So it's a little digital in that regard, but we decided that for the frame rate, we kind of need to keep it 60, because when you're really dashing through the halls, you don't want any strobing, because that could be really not confusing, but it's just very distracting from the gameplay. So, but we're animating everything at 24 frames a second. Now we could convert it to 60 frames a second, in which case anything on 2s would be 4s. It gets dicey when you're shooting on 1s in that case, because it's so quick that you kind of shoot on 2s. But if you need to speed things up, and it's sort of the devil we know is 24 frames a second. So that's sort of what we had to kind of focus on in terms of animation. Sometimes in Flash, here I'll show you something. This is close small gaps, and you'll see the furrow line disappears every time I color it. Sometimes a trick like that will get fixed if you hit don't close gaps at all, and then it's there. I don't know what that is. It's just sort of a thing that happens in Flash, and it's happened in every Flash since I've started using it. Just a program error. And I always try to keep don't close gaps anyway because, especially with a thicker line, you kind of get away with it. Yarlin mentioned a section of the game run time. Yeah, the game run. Oh, the future man's saying that. Yeah. All right, so we got this kind of fun little zip. Now I always have to remind myself too. We're going in at 25%. So, okay. So that's the timing for this, and we're kind of running low on time. So I'm going to show you sort of how this will play out. Now, I sent Cody all this stuff. We'll keep that in there. But, so now that we established the timing, I can get rid of the first frame because that's just an idle thing that we don't want, and we don't want any repeat. So that's going to be that. I got my timing all here. This is timing out right. I got my chart up here. So I know what I have to do for the rest of it, and I'm gonna shoot the end on 2s because that disappears. And by the time he's off, you're already off and running in the game, so it doesn't affect your interaction by the time he's gone. So now, essentially, what you could take. Let me copy both of these. Shrink them down to 25%. And for this purpose, I'm going to shrink it down 50% so everyone sees what's happening. I'm going to make him a symbol. Now, this is not what Cody does, but this is what the game essentially will do. Janitor all. I'll extend this as long as I want the scene, since this is sort of a new symbol. I'll make it 10 seconds for now. What I'm going to do, just for the sake of argument, is this will eventually be 6 seconds, but for this we don't need it. So now we got the symbol, right? Got him, then eventually he turns back to that. We'll pretend that's animated. 24, so we'll make it 240. Alright, so we got him there. Now what I want to do, say, at the 5-second mark, we'll line up that on the keyframe. Now I'm going to swap the symbols. Now, because I registered this by duplicating the symbol, Antic, it should line up right. So you see nothing changed in terms of registration. So we got all that happening. Then we could just disappear. Or you could just hit play once and then it will not loop. Okay, so the janitor is all set up. So we got that in the symbol. Do you guys have any mental discipline tricks? To not do? Well, I feel like there's no real trick. We're always on borrowed time, I feel like. Bob and I, and Cody and Andrew, Greg doesn't have any kids. He's the writer, but he's married, and we all have full-time jobs. So what? Oh, I'm talking to Don. Don, we just don't have a lot of time, really. So,
Well, I don't know what
so
you're
procrastinating procrastinating only hurts the procrastinator. If you have to get it done, you have to get it done. So I just have a mental clock in my head at all time where I have to. I have to get something done by the end of the day, and if I don't, then I work that night. And I always try to over-exaggerate it, so even if I don't hit that goal, at least I know I did the most I could do. But yeah, I should have gave you some of that advice 3 years ago when the game was finished. Dong, if we beat you...
Oh, I'm going to have a stupid question.
Are you thinking of making it? Oh, that's for you, Dong. I think you did mention that. You should. I already have this. So let's say... we're going to have her walk in.
We're not making one for Don, I think.
We have to make one for blood. I'm sweating bullets for that one. Which one's a wall? Okay, so I'm going to make this Becky 1. Make this 10 seconds. Okay, so I'm not setting her up too good. I would have kept her not in the symbol. Okay, so let's say 48 frames. She comes in, walks in. Stops. 48. I'm gonna pop to the idle. That's not it. Oops. Which one's the idle here? Idle profile. Okay, so now this will loop. So we got the walk, then she stops. That's the idle. I'll actually move her a little further back so we can add a bad dude. Is it gonna do it? Maybe later. Yeah.
Everybody finishes the game.
The year was 2032. The game, Neon Krager. Got delayed again. Let me grab one of these shadow vamps. Actually, we did some... I'll show you something we made. Do we have the promotional? Was it... Where is the one, the Christmas one?
This should be promotional Xmas or
Mm.
holiday. Is it folder? Holiday. It's the holiday folder.
Holiday. Oh, that's just the background, unless you added it in.
I guess you did not, but
I might not have it. Did I save it on anything? I'll just grab another guy. Cutaways, let's say we'll have... I always like the shadow vamps. They have the most in there. Okay, so appear and idle. So everything's the exact same principle here, where everything should be registered. Untitled. %. We're gonna make him the symbol. And ball. Again, we'll make that 10 seconds. Swap the symbol to Vampire Idol, frame 1. So, see, it's two different symbols, but everything should line up proper. So, say she walks in, talks to him, and this vampire comes out. We'll line him up right. Then, yeah, hit a call to action button, say, and then he can jump off, and that'll be frame 102. And that's sort of how we'll set up something so Cody will know what to program. Cody or Andrew will know what to program.
mostly Andrew.
So he does that. And you know, that's sort of how we'll kind of set up how we see it programmed. Now they'll fix stuff. Someone texting me, is it my wife? No, everything is good so far. Okay, not for me. Okay, so that's sort of where I'm going to leave you guys this weekend, or this Friday. By next week, we'll have this guy finished for you. I'll show you the full animation, and we'll jump on for episode 3 of Drawing Blood. And until then, I hope you guys have a good weekend and tell your friends. We have all the mailing list. Follow us, Exit 73, everything. And keep bothering Dong because he's not going to finish this game otherwise. Good night!